Hey everybody, how's it going? It's Jiva and welcome back for a new video. First off, let me just say happy September, happy fall. I'm pretty sure a lot of you guys are already deeply into like autumn preparations, getting cozy. So that's actually why I'm here today, because I thought we could talk about some exciting new releases, some exciting new book releases coming out this fall that I think would make a really good addition to your cozy tbrs. So if you're interested, grab a cup of tea, grab a cup of coffee, something to keep you company through this video, because it could possibly be long. Because I do have here 18 books I'd like to tell you about, of some cozy fantasy, some witchy romances that I think might be a good pick to pick up this autumn. So yes, without further ado, let's just jump into the list now and let's talk about some books. Okay everybody, so just to keep things organized, we're actually gonna go in chronological order by the book's release dates. So that's why some of these earlier books on here have actually already been released. So if you're interested in them, you can actually already go and check them out. We're kicking it off with a book called The Haunting of Hecate Cavendish. This is by Paula Brackston. It already came out in July. And I think this is a book for anybody who's looking for a good kind of atmospheric gothic type of story. We actually have 1800s London. We follow Hecate Cavendish, who's just been hired as an assistant librarian at the Hereford Cathedral. Now, unbeknownst to the main character, this cathedral is actually a little bit haunted and a little bit magical. So there are souls trapped within the walls of this cathedral. There are books that have to be chained to the bookshelves. There's supposedly old wisdom and old mysteries buried in the place. But the most mysterious thing in this cathedral is actually an old medieval map that's hanging beside Hecate's desk, and it's portraying some magical creatures. And it's gonna be these magical creatures who are going to play a much bigger role in Hecate's story. Some of them good, some of them bad, but it's gonna be something Hecate is gonna have to deal with. And that's what I know about the story. So you see how this sounds. It's gonna be a perfect kind of like historical, paranormal, atmospheric, gothic sort of story, and it sounds just perfect. The next book is an August release, and this one is called Strange Folk by Alli Dyer. And it says this book is perfect for fans of Alice Hoffman, Deborah Harkness, and also Sarah Addison Allen. Now, I know two of those authors, and both of them write books that are perfect for the autumn season, so I think this book is actually gonna be a pretty nice addition on the autumn TBR. And we follow a young woman. She's called Alli, and she left her family when she was 18 and their magical prowess. However, since then she has decided to move back from California to her hometown along with her kids. But when she comes back home, she realizes her grandmother may have dabbled in some powers that were beyond her understanding and may have summoned something darker than she anticipated, which caused a man to die. Now Lee kind of takes it upon herself to figure out what exactly happened, to come to the bottom of her family's secrets, but along the way she might actually discover that she has some powers of her own. So this sounds kind of interesting. I don't know why I'm getting kind of fairy vibes from it, but again, fairies in the folktale kind of way. I don't know whether it's the title, Strange Folk, or what is it, but it sounds like it's gonna be a kind of darker mystery, and I'm very interested in how this story is gonna go. And then the next August release that sounds perfect for autumn is a book called Rules for Ghosting by Shelly Jay Shore. Now in this one we follow Ezra, and Ezra can see ghosts. This usually isn't a big deal until the day he decides he's gonna take a role in the family business instead of his mother, and their business is running a memorial chapel. After he starts working there, obviously he is constantly surrounded by ghosts. He also starts developing a little crush on one of the volunteers, but everything's still fine until the day he actually starts seeing the ghost of his late husband. And this ghost is kind of breaking all the ghosting rules. He can move around, he can speak, and he seems like he's suddenly haunting Ezra in all senses of the word. So yes, this book sounds like it's gonna be a bit of like a paranormal romance with a little bit of like ghost hauntings and a little bit of maybe mourning and grief thrown in there. It sounds like it's gonna be pretty interesting, and again, I do love a story that kind of features a character who has to deal with somebody's passing, so while also finding romance. I think I talked about this in one of the previous videos, but it sounds like it's gonna be an interesting one. Okay everybody, now it's time to get into the thick of it with some September releases. So the first book here we have Hate Hex, and this is by Gino Lamana. It came out September 1st. And we follow a young witch called Trixie. Now Trixie doesn't really like her magic. She's been trying to repress her magic, instead working as a taxi driver in New York. Everything's fine until one night actually her magic uncontrollably decides to lash out, and it lashes out at this billionaire vampire called Dominic, who also happens to own the building that Trixie lives in. So this ends in Dominic trying to kick Trixie out of the building and Trixie putting a hex on Dominic, and they sort of go back and forth for a while until a common enemy comes to the city in the shape of Dominic's brother, and Trixie and Dominic realize it would actually be better for them to try and work together. I feel like vampires are gonna be big this year. There are so many vampire books coming out, and I think this is gonna be one of those interesting, entertaining ones coming out this year. It just sounds like one of those fine, like the X-Hex type of stories, you know? So if you're looking for something similar, I think this is gonna be an interesting addition for your autumn TBR. Another book that came out in September is called Hot Text Boyfriend by Carly Bloom. This came out September 3rd, so it's also already out if you would like to check it out. And in this one we follow a family of witches called the Merriweathers, and they believe that they have been hexed. They also believe that one of their youngest daughters, called Delia, is gonna be the one who's gonna be able to break this hex. However, the spell that's needed for breaking the hex is very dangerous and very much illegal. But what happens is that Delia ends up breaking the hex without actually using this very dangerous and very illegal spell, and suddenly the Merriweathers are free. But it also means that other members of other witching communities actually come knocking on their doors asking how they managed to do it. One of these people also being like the great something grandson of the man who originally put the hex on the Merriweathers. And he's kind of scared that the Merriweathers are actually going to try to do what their ancestors couldn't back in the day, which is controlling the hearts of men with magic. And so this young man, he's called Max, meets Delia and he starts kind of working together with her to figure out what's gonna happen next. But he also kind of starts developing some feelings for her, but unfortunately he can't be sure now if the feelings are real or if they are indeed the workings of a spell that the Merriweathers are cooking up already. So, sounds so exciting, so interesting. I love the idea of the family of witches, the hex, the magic, the whole kind of rivalry thing between Max's family and the Merriweathers. This sounds like it's gonna be very dramatic, but also a very fun kind of witchy romance. Okay guys, so next up, I'm so excited because we are getting a new Rachel Harrison book this autumn, and supposedly it's gonna be about vampires. So this one is called So Thirsty. It comes out September 10th, and that is so freaking soon. And we actually follow a couple of best friends. So first off we have Sloane, and she's in a bit of a weird place in her life right now. She feels indifferent about life. She knows her husband is cheating on her. And just before her birthday, she actually gets a surprise, a gift from her husband for a surprise getaway. But the getaway isn't actually for him and her, so Sloane and her husband. It's actually for Sloane to go on with her best friend, a troublemaker named Naomi. So obviously they go, but what's supposed to be a fun and cozy retreat ends up being something else after Naomi organizes a party with some strangers, after which Sloane and Naomi kind of find themselves dealing with some changes in their life. And I'm pretty sure that means that they actually get turned into vampires. So with this new change, they kind of have to learn how to live and have fun as a completely new species. So fun. Yeah, that's what I know about the story. I feel like we don't really get much more from the synopsis, but it sounds like it's gonna be so exciting. I can't wait to read this book. I feel like in true Rachel Harrison fashion, we're getting kind of a cozy horror type of book, and I cannot wait. So yes, put it on your calendars, guys. I think this is gonna be a good one. Okay everybody, and then in the sea of books that are coming out on September 17th, because apparently half of the autumnal books are coming out on that same date. Among them is a book called Perfectly Wicked by Lindsay Lease, and this one apparently is for anybody who was a fan of Charmed, and apparently it's also a bit of a mix between Charmed and Ghost Hunters. So personally, as a big fan of Charmed, I still remember I used to watch the TV show with my mother and my brothers when I was little. I was very interested to actually check out this book. And we follow Holly and her sisters. They are the owners of an orchard and they make a killer apple cider, but they do so with a bit of a magical twist. Unfortunately, the killer apple cider isn't enough to really keep the orchard afloat financially. So when an offer comes their way from like a ghost hunting TV show that they would like to film an episode at their orchard, they accept the offer, but they are a bit hesitant about it because obviously they don't want the world to know that they have magic going on at this orchard, you know? But that's exactly the showrunner's, Connor's, goal. He wants to expose the sisters for doing something magical at his orchard because obviously that would help with exposure for his show. But Connor and Holly end up working together, kind of like discovering all these new mysteries at the orchard that not even Holly was aware of beforehand. So as they kind of get along and get to know each other better, they both realize they have some decisions to make that are going to affect how the story is going to end. But there is one specific sentence in the summary that actually pushed this book straight to the top of my autumn TBR, and I'm gonna read it to you. So it says, Connor moves to a new state every month, and there's no room in his life for a woman with a pet hedgehog, a house full of nosy aunts and sisters, and a failing apple orchard. So can we backtrack to the fact that Holly has a pet hedgehog, and she's a witch, and she lives on an orchard? How freaking cute and precious is that? I cannot wait to pick up Perfectly Wicked by Lindsay Louise. Another cozy witchy book that's coming out this September is a book called Rewitched by Lucy Jane Wood, and this one is coming out September 19th. And it sounds like it's gonna be such a cute little story. So we follow this young woman, she's called Belladonna, or Belle for short, Blackthorn. And she hasn't really lost her magic, but she also hasn't really been practicing it recently. She's kind of juggling between working at a bookstore and trying to be a witch secretly. And that's why she's feeling a bit burnt out. As a result, she hasn't really been feeling like practicing or perfecting her magic. And everything's fine, but on her birthday, she's actually summoned by her coven that informs her she's gonna be going through a series of trials to test her magic. And in case she doesn't pass those trials, she is going to lose her magic forever. So they give her a month to prepare, the month of October, to find somebody who's gonna help her out. And she does find some women who actually decided they're going to try and teach her. She also finds a mentor, and she also finds somebody she's gonna be falling in love with. So yes, she has a month to prepare to fight against the dark forces that are apparently working against her. It says here that this book is with fun family, slow burn romance, and an uplifting message about self-love. This is the cozy autumnal read that you have been waiting for. So yes, it sounds like it's gonna have everything for a good cozy autumnal read. We have a couple of books coming out October 1st. The first one is called The Creston Moon Tea Room by Stacey Sawinski. And this is actually a story about three clairvoyant sisters who tell other people's fortunes from tea leaves. And they've kind of made this their alive business. And all is well in life until the day a witch from the Council of Witches ends up passing away, and suddenly the sisters find themselves drawn into different career paths, seemingly away from each other. And they start suspecting that this might actually be the workings of a family curse following the passing of the witch from the Council of Witches. So the three sisters, along with the help of some other witches from the town, decide that they will go against fate, that they will fight this curse and actually fight for each other to be working together again. But as the synopsis mentions, this chase to kind of like draw them back together might just end up in them losing themselves. So it sounds kind of mysterious. I feel like the synopsis for this book doesn't really give you much. There is a lot left to the imagination, but I just love the overall kind of like subtly magic vibe. We have a different type of magic, you know, because the sisters are clairvoyant and they use tea leaves. So I feel like this is gonna be a pretty unique story that's coming out this October 1st. And then we actually have another exciting witchy romance coming out October 1st. This one is called Best Text Ever by Nadia El-Fassi. And in this one we follow a young woman. She's called Dina and she's actually a kitchen witch. And she's made it her life's business making magic-infused sweets. But not everybody in her life knows that she has magic, and even fewer people know that she actually has a little problem. She has a cursed love life, so whoever ends up falling in love with her is actually gonna have bad luck in life. So on the other hand, we meet our other main character. He's called Scott, and he has just come back to London after a little post-heartbreak trip away from London. And he is going to be the best man at his best friend's wedding, where Dina just so happens to be the maid of honor to her best friend's wedding. So this is where they meet, especially in the weeks leading up to the wedding, where they all as a group spend some time together in the English countryside. So they enjoy some like tarot readings, some palm readings, some rituals, some hedge mazes, whatever that means. And Scott and Dina actually get closer and closer, so they kind of start falling for each other. But obviously there is gonna be some hesitation from both of their sides. Scott with his recent heartbreak and Dina with her problem of a cursed love life. But on Dina's part, she is for the first time in her life determined that she wants to break this curse and actually be with Scott. So I think that's what the story is going to be about. It sounds so cute and so interesting. I love the idea of the English countryside setting. I think it's gonna be very unique and very charming. And of course, we have a little bit of magic and a lot of romance. So I think this is gonna be a pretty good book to pick up this fall. On October 3rd, there's a book coming out that's called The Cottage Around the Corner by D.L. Soria. And this is another kind of witchy small town romance type of book. In this one we follow Charlie Sparrow. She is a witch and she lives in Owl's Hollow. She's also the sole owner of the only like magic shop in town. That is until this new mage enterprise decided they're going to open their own shop. So suddenly there's competition. Charlie isn't overly happy about this because she's already dealing with a burglary and trying to get loans to kind of keep the shop afloat, but she finds herself actually enjoying the, other shop's owner Fitz's company. So whenever they are spending time together, she finds him to be very charming. But of course she is fighting for her livelihood, so she's not going to go down easy. She's going to fight with tooth and nail. But the competition kind of takes a back burner when there's a new supernatural threat that comes to town and it forces the witch and the mage to actually work together to defeat the evil forces. So again, it sounds like such a cute small town romance with a little bit of like an enemies to lover trope thrown in there. So it sounds like it's gonna be very charming and perfect for autumn. Okay guys, so this next book might put one of the most original spins on some of the most well-known holidays through the year. And this book is called The Nightmare Before Christmas by Sarah Rosh. It's coming out October 8th. Put down the days because I think this is gonna be a good one. It says this is when Red, White and Royal Blue meets Nightmare Before Christmas. So already sounds like it's gonna be perfect. But yeah, so the summary says this is a story about Cole, who is one of the two sons of Santa Claus. So Cole is actually one of the two princes of Christmas. And recently he's been feeling a bit disappointed with the direction that his father is taking Christmas. He thinks it's just turning into like this huge PR facade and he doesn't really want anything to do with it anymore. So one night as he's kind of like drowning his sorrows, he meets this guy in a bar. They end up hooking up, having a one-night stand, and then they go each other's ways. And Cole doesn't really expect to ever run into him until the day his father informs him that he has arranged a marriage for him and that he is supposedly going to marry the Eastern princess. Now, one of the problems is that his brother, Cole's brother, has a crush on the Eastern princess, so he's already hesitant to actually get involved with her. But as he starts courting the princess, he also realizes he has some other competition in the form of the Halloween prince, a guy called Hex. Now, Hex also happens to be the guy that Cole hooked up with during the night that he went out to the bar, and what happens is that the two princes, instead of actually courting the princess, end up like seeking each other out more than, paying attention to the princess. So of course, I think we all know where this is gonna go, but it sounds so exciting and so interesting and like such an original spin in the romance genre. I think this is gonna be a good one, so you should definitely keep an eye out for this book. Another book that's coming out October 8th is a book called A Dark and Secret Magic by Wallace Kinney. And apparently this is a Hades and Persephone meets practical magic meets Witch of Wild Things type of book. And I personally don't know much about any of those three things, like very little about all of those three things, but I felt like some of you might actually find it very charming and interesting, so if yes, then this book is for you. But in the story we follow Kate Goodwin, and she is a hedge witch, which makes her pretty happy with her life because it means she has like the minimal amount of contact with other people. She just does her witchy things and sell her witchy crafts, and that's it. She doesn't really have to deal with other people until she gets a call from her sister, and she's asking her if she'd be willing to host the Halloween gathering. Now Kate ends up agreeing and now has to deal with like the pressure from the witching community to make this event memorable and perfect. And like she's already dealing with a lot when a man ends up knocking, a man called Matthew, on her door asking her for sanctuary. Now since she is the head witch, she actually has to grant his request and allow him to stay at his cottage until he like figures out his trouble. But she doesn't really trust this man because she actually recognizes him from her past as like a practitioner of dark magic. But he also happens to be the only person that she can ask for help in trying to figure out what her mother was doing with writing some dark magic journals herself. So this is how Kate and Matthew end up working together to figure out this mystery, all the while preparing for this like magical Halloween gathering of witches. And that's what I know about the story. It sounds like it's gonna be so good. I don't know, I feel like I'm saying this for every single book, but this one just genuinely seems to combine so many things. Like we have the hedge witch and what it means for Kate's life, we have the whole community, we have the Halloween gathering, we have dark magic practitioners. There's so many things. I feel like this story is going to conclude, and it makes me extremely interested how the author is going to handle all that and how it's going to turn out. I didn't realize this before, but we actually have another book coming out October 8th. This one is called Haunt Your Heart Out by Amber Roberts, and it's kind of like a paranormal romance, but like the paranormal part of the story is made up by the main character. It also says this book is perfect for fans of Gilmore Girls, so I think those are gonna be the magic words that are gonna get a lot of people interested. But yeah, in the story we follow our main character. She's called Lex, and she is actually a bookseller at this bookstore. And she loves her job. She loves her job so much that when the owner of the building offers her to sell her the bookstore, she actually jumps at the chance. But the reason why the owner wants to get rid of the bookstore is because apparently it is haunted. But what people don't realize is that the hauntings are actually fake. They were made up by a bored Lex a decade ago, and the story just seemed to stick. So now that the bookstore is going up for sale, there is actually a ghost hunter coming to town to figure out if the ghost actually exists or if this is just a farce. So of course Lex gets scared and does everything in her power to actually convince the ghost hunter that there are indeed ghosts around here. So yes, it sounds so charming, and for some reason it does give me Gilmore Girls vibes. Nothing about the ghosts really, but I think it's just like the playful vibe that the story is kind of giving off that's reminding me of Gilmore Girls. So yes, that is Haunt Your Heart Out by Amber Roberts, coming out October 8th. Okay then, next up we have Sorcery and Small Magics by Maika Duki, and this one is coming out on October 15th. In this one we follow two sorcerers, two total opposites, who end up being bound together by a dark magic spell that neither of them can undo. On the one hand we have the main character Leo, and he is a practitioner of small magics. He doesn't really dabble with bigger magic, like one that would be required to undo the spell. And on the other hand we have Sebastian, who only casts spells, never really counter spells. And in their desperation to figure out how to undo this, they actually try not to draw too much attention to themselves and quietly enter the Unquiet Wood. I really like this opposition of quietly entering the Unquiet Wood, but okay, I guess we're gonna figure it out by reading the book. But yeah, so they go there trying to figure out how to break this spell in the company of some murderers, monsters, and other like dangerous outlaws. But they really are desperate to figure out how to undo this. But by entering these woods, they actually start learning more about first working together to undo it, but also more about their own magic. So yes, that's what I got from the synopsis. I don't really know more than that, but it sounds like it's gonna be just like romantic, magical, fun, kind of like a gay enemies to lovers romance. I think this is going to be a good one for any TJ Klune fans out there. Coming out on October 29th, we have a book called A New Lease on Death by Olivia Black. Now in this story we follow a couple of roommates living in Boston whose neighbor suddenly ends up dead in his apartment. Apparently it's like a burglary gone wrong, but one of the main characters actually doesn't believe so. This main character, she's called Cordelia, is actually also a ghost. So she's trying to investigate this, but being a ghost, she can't really do much on her own. She also can't really leave it alone, so she ends up convincing her living roommate called Ruby to actually do the investigating in her stead. So the two end up teaming together to try and figure out what happened to their neighbor, but in their investigation they actually stumble across some bigger secrets that neither of them really expected. So it sounds ghostly, sounds interesting, sounds exciting. I love the idea that Ruby can actually see Cordelia, so I think there's gonna be more to Ruby than meets the eye, or is Cordelia just gonna be like somehow manipulating Ruby into investigating? I genuinely have no idea, but I think this is gonna be like a really like good ghostly one for like either Halloween or like November or something. Okay friends, we're down to the last two books. Both are coming out in November. And this first one I think is one of the few like properly cozy fantasies that are coming out this autumn. At least out of all the books that I saw, I think this is gonna be one of those very charming cozy fantasies coming out. It's coming out November 5th. It's called Teller of Small Fortunes by Julie Leong. And we actually follow a young girl, she's called Tao, and she is a traveling fortune teller who only ever tells small fortunes because she's realized and learned in life that big fortunes can have big consequences. And she's traveling alone, and even though she sometimes feels lonely, she doesn't really want to return to her old life. And that is until one day a small fortune ends up turning into something bigger, and she ends up being joined on her journey by like a semi-reformed thief, an ex-mercenary, who are both looking for a lost child, and they are also joined by a baker and a possibly magical cat. So this company of people end up traveling together, looking for a lost child, getting up to possibly other things, and telling fortunes and whatnot. And it just sounds like it's gonna be such a magical found family tale that I don't think you're gonna want to miss this one. Okay, and last but not least, we have a book called The Courting of Bristol Keats by Mary E. Pearson that's coming out November 12th. In this one we actually follow a couple of sisters, and neither of them realize that actually their family secrets are of the supernatural variety. They only realize this after both of their parents end up passing away, and an aunt that they have never heard of before gets in touch with them. So one of the sisters, Bristol Keats, actually meets up with his aunt, and she tells her that her father wasn't entirely human. He may have belonged to a different realm, and at this point he actually hasn't been killed, he hasn't died, he's actually been kidnapped to this other realm. So what Bristol decides is that she's going to follow him and try and find him and save him from this like realm of gods and monsters and fae. But after arriving there, she actually makes a deal with a fae king without realizing that he's actually not a person that she should have trusted with her troubles. Now she's on a path to find her father with a possible enemy as her advisor. So yes, sounds like it's gonna be really good. I have really high hopes for this story, especially since it's written by Mary E. Pearson. I'm hoping for some like darker fae type of realm that we're entering, but I'm also just ready to be surprised by whatever this book is gonna bring. That was the last book for this list. It's called The Courting of Bristol Keats, and that wraps up this year's some of my personally most like exciting and most anticipated fall releases that are coming out. Definitely please feel free to share your most anticipated releases. I'm so curious what people are gonna be reading. I actually skipped a lot of books on this list because I've seen them mentioned in a lot of other people's videos, but there are still a lot of exciting like dark academia books coming out especially, and like vampire books and whatnot. So yeah, I'd love to know what you guys are looking forward to the most. That's gonna be it for now. I'm actually gonna go and rest my voice now. That was a lot of talking. But I just wanted to say thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you found some books on this list that you are gonna be adding to your own TBRs or like save them for next year or something. But yeah, happy reading, happy fall. I think I already said that, but it's finally September, guys, so go ahead and enjoy these early fall moments and just the entirety of autumn. So yes, I'm gonna see you very soon with a new video, but until then, I hope you're having a great day or night wherever you are. And until then, bye bye!